the state, we like acronyms, so it's known as BMAP, or TMDL. So when I go through this, if I give you all the acronym that you go like, what's he talking about? Raise your hand, throw something at me, say something, and I'll stop, because I do this a lot, so I always assume that everybody knows what I know, as little as that might be. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the process, the TMDL BMAP process, and talk a little bit about the Suwannee River BMAP, and then see if you all have any questions. So, yes, sir.
First raised hand, BMAP.
Basin Management Action Plan.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So you listened. Okay, well, let's see. How do I advance this? There we go. Before I get started, I thought I'd show you this, because I know not all of you probably made it up to, as they call it, the Great State Fair of New York. I was there over Labor Day, and this is their butter cow sculpture that they have every year. So I figured it was important for you all to realize that, agriculture is important everywhere, and I think there's probably one in the Tampa State Fair, but that was the butter cow sculpture this year for talking about Greek yogurt. So if you had a burning desire to know that, now you do. So, and it was quite amazing. But anyway, I had no idea who could spend the time to carve butter to look like that. But, so moving on to what we're here to talk about. Okay, the TMDL program. There's going to be quite a bit of slides with process here that I'll kind of skip through. Dr. Shortell is going to take a copy of this and put it up on their website. So if you have more questions, you can ask me about them later. Yes, sir. Total maximum daily load.
Thank you.
I read lines too. Total maximum daily load. Program as a result of the Clean Water Act. So there's a basis for it back in the EPA Clean Water Act. Basically, it looks at data, collects data, and determines if water bodies are impaired. And if they are impaired, you develop a total maximum daily load, and then you implement that through the Basin Management Action Plan. I'll talk just briefly about that as I go forward. What is it? Okay. It's the maximum amount of a pollutant that a water body can receive and still meet the water quality standards. So, that's pretty straightforward. If it's typically expressed as a load or a concentration, and it is impaired or it's not impaired. So it's a simple concept. It's difficult to implement. All right. TMDL cycle, and one of those arrows never shows up. Basically, it's a big wheel. You take water samples, you determine if that water body is impaired, and you develop a TMDL. You implement some process to restore it. You continue to sample it to see if you're achieving success, and you can, and it continues to be listed or not listed. So basically, it's the data collection process and then the implementation projects to achieve restoration of the water body. Okay, so it goes on; it never stops. It's the key to this one here. It's a restoration of water bodies. It's not a remediation. In other words, like a petroleum site, you got to dig up dirt, haul it away, it's clean, go away, walk away, it's done. But water body restoration is an ongoing process. You're trying to get it back to the unimpaired, and then you continue to monitor it to make sure that it no longer goes back to the impaired status. So that's the purpose. To do that, you develop a BMAP, Basin Management Action Plan, to implement those total maximum daily loads. A BMAP is, as it says, a management action plan. It's developed by and for stakeholders to come up with projects that can limit whatever the pollutant is. In the case of the Suwannee Basin, it's nutrients. So you have to come up with things that, we'll talk about those projects that will help reduce the amount of nutrients entering the watershed and impacting the river. Okay. The Suwannee River BMAP is the area there in yellow. The shaded area to the right is the Santa Fe River Basin BMAP that just got adopted in, I think it was July. In the Suwannee Basin, it basically goes from the I-10 bridge down to the Gulf. There's a little over 1 million acres. It's predominantly agricultural and forest. That's what, about 74%. Limited urban and built-up areas. So it's nothing that y'all don't know. There's a lot of ag and a lot of forest land, in that area along the Suwannee. So, plan itself is a yes, sir.
What was the other percentage?
Of
there was what, 20-something% missing there on
well, okay, the 26 and 48, that's 74, and 7 is 81. So
19%.
yeah, 19%. Would be things like barren land, water management district land, you know, and you'll
So
see
that's not included in forest?
No, the forest is the 48%, the silviculture, the managed forests, okay? And actually, I think that question will be better answered in some of the figures that I have as we come forward. They're a little more county specific. You'll see, these are just the, what's that called? Level 1 land use codes, you know, the high level stuff. It doesn't differentiate between row crops and pasture land and, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just ag. So, hold that thought. If it doesn't answer it, we'll come up with an answer. Okay, basic management action plans are long-term plans. Typically they're phased. You know, phase 1 is a 3 to 5 year where you basically try and implement projects, see if what you're doing works, how you can adjust things to make it work better. And then when you get to the end of that 3 to 5 year period, you look at what you've done, you know, review your progress and adjust as needed. So, you know, the key to keep in mind with that is it doesn't happen overnight. You know, we didn't achieve impairment yesterday, all of a sudden, and we won't achieve restoration tomorrow. It's going to be a while, and that's the goal. It's a long-term event. Annual reports to determine if you are achieving progress, you know, and what's working and how you can implement it. Just a quick overview of the TMDL for the Suwannee River Basin. You have to have a verified period. You know, when was the data looked at to determine whether or not, you know, the river was impaired? That was from 2000 to 2007. The TMDL was published and adopted as a rule. It shows that nitrate was believed to be the primary factor in causing the algal blooms, and that's the impairment for the Suwannee and the Santa Fe rivers, is algal mats that preclude its class 3 use of swimmable fish. Nitrates seem to be the issue that is causing that. As a result of that, the 0.35 milligrams per liter nitrate monthly average concentration or lower, will not cause an imbalance in the soil or pond. So that's what we're trying to get the river and the springs along the river back to, the 0.35. And we'll get to what they are in just a second and a couple of these other figures. So, and that shows up really well. I think the key on that is, if I can be trusted to use this. If you look at these charts along the right that are a little dim, and I apologize for that, taking a look at this on a big screen. You know, it looks much better when you look at it on your desktop. You'll see a red line. These are the water quality plots from Suwannee River. And the red line across them all for the various water quality stations is the TMDL. The blue dots that you can typically see, you know, above it, like here they're below it, are the water quality values. So the red line is 0.35. So the key there is when you look through this, and this happens to be Suwannee County, most of the water quality stations, like you can see over here, these blue dots are all well above that 0.35 line. And those scales are not all the same. You know, they're not all 0 to 0.5. So in some cases they're way above, in some cases they're barely above. But I think the key there is that it's not a single point problem. You know, it's the nitrate levels in the river are well above the TMDL for the length of the river. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And your question about other land use, I'm sure you can read those because you have much younger eyes than I do. No.
I can read a couple of them.
Yeah, but that's the, and if I look at this map here, I can probably actually read it. Like in this case, the brown is rangeland, the green, dark green is uplands, the light blue is wetlands, the gray is barren land, the red is urban and built up, and the yellow is agriculture. So I think when you look at the, you know, when you ask what the other is that combination of like wetlands and some upland stuff that's not classified as agriculture or silviculture. So.
On your charts, along the right column,
Yes, sir.
the first one you pointed out, the second one in descending order, that has most of the blue dots below the red line.
Yes, sir.
What river is that? Where is the
That is,
measurement taken?
those two, the first two are up on the north side of the county boundary of Suwannee County, at the north edge of the county. The one is the Suwannee River at something Old Bridge, and the other one is the one above that is at Suwannee Spring. So the very top one is Suwannee Spring, and the one below that is the US 129 that goes straight north.
Now, which one represents where the river passes, or at the south end of Suwannee County?
The south end of Suwannee County would be, excuse me, all the way down to the bottom one on the right. You would see the and that's actually close to where the Santa Fe comes in near Hildreth. That's the far bottom right one, and the blue dots are well above it. So, you know, I guess what we're seeing here is that, you know, the point of all this was, and I apologize for not showing up on this because I didn't really look at it on this level, you know, is the fact that we do have concentrations of the TMDL along the entire river. You know, it's not just a one or two, like, you know, right at a spring. It's the entire river. And you'll see that as we go to the next one, which is Gilchrist County. you'll see the same thing, that as you go down like Rock Bluff, on the left-hand side, Rock Bluff Spring is the second one down. You can see the blue lines climbing up over it. If you go down to 3 up from the bottom on the left side, that's Manatee, or no, excuse me, that's Hart Springs. And, you know, the point of all this is not the specific data points, but more the fact that, you know, uniformly, we're seeing the river well above the TMDL. So, you know, there is an issue with nutrients along the entire river, and that's really the take-home message. So it's a fact that because it's such a large basin with what we call non-point sources, no end-of-pipe discharges, it's a case of everybody has to do a little to eventually achieve a lot. You know, we can't, you know, there's no one, like the city of Live Oak, you know, has a wastewater plant that discharges directly to the river. And we can say, okay, you've got to go in and do some sort of secondary or tertiary treatment to get your waste load down to this TMDL or below it. You know, it's everybody from the folks that live along it that, you know, if they mow their grass and it runs off into the river, to their septic tanks, to the folks, you know, that fertilize with inorganic fertilizer that, you know, have runoff that, you know, we need to have a little better control on it. You know, implement BMPs. You know, it's an entire holistic type of approach is what needs to happen.
Your charts, the ones that were on either side, you said they weren't necessarily comparable to one or comparable to one another because they weren't to scale. Let's say the south end of Suwannee County, how much over the 0.35 milligrams? Is it double, triple? And how bad is it? Are we 0.07 milligrams away from being good to go, or?
Well, that's, you know, see, I guess that's, I'm gonna answer that with a non-answer. Because I work for the government. Really. Yeah, trust me, I'm here to help. The effect is both cumulative and location sensitive. So that's kind of like my non-answer. It matters. You know, everything coming down contributes to what's at that point as well as what's coming in at that point. So, you know, it's not again, because it's not a specific, you know, point that only measures what's coming to it from, say, the south end of the county, but it's measuring also what comes down the entire river to that point. You get some dilution factor because of the volume of water flowing through it, but you also get, you know, a cumulative effect. So is it lessening as we go downstream? No, it's all staying about from 0.7 to 1.5 would be the typical numbers that you see along the river. So, you know, you're twice above it to say maybe 3 times above it.
What is that, say, at the state line?
Up by Georgia. Actually, just north of the I-10 bridge, it's like at 0.35. But, you know, there's some dilution happening there because the Withlacoochee and the Alapaha are also impaired, and we'll be working on there eventually. So,
It's roughly at the standards then, at the point it enters the state.
It's pretty close to it, yeah. And you touched on a really good point, sir. It's you know, it's a really big basin. And how do you say, okay, we're only going to deal with the tail and not the dog? You know, you really can't. I mean, so